I've just disembarked a cruise where I went to a town that is so remote that you're not allowed to die or give birth there. The cruise was 12 days long and I didn't see the sunset for 10 days because it just didn't set. The sun was up 24 hours a day. I tried my hand at a new profession far underground, I spent my time whale watching and did so much more. This cruise was anything but ordinary and it has to be seen to be believed. When I saw this itinerary, I was instantly interested. I've never been to Svalbard or Iceland before, and I didn't realise that the mainstream cruise lines went that far north. I wasn't sure if a cruise would be the best way to visit these kinds of places. I wondered how the 24-hour daylight would affect me, and I wanted to make the most out of my time in every single port, so I did decide to do a mix of cruise line excursions and exploring by myself. I was hoping to see a whale too, but I was not holding my breath for that one. Side note though, some whales do go about half an hour between breaths, which is very impressive. We flew to Copenhagen to board our cruise, and in total we would travel 3,331 nautical miles up the coast of Norway along to Svalbard before ending in Reykjavik. I have visited Norway on cruises before, but I've never been as far north as we were when we visited Honningsvåg. It's actually a city despite only having 2,200 residents, which is very similar to the number of passengers on board the Norwegian Star, which was the ship that I was on. If you count the crew in that statistic too, we outnumbered the locals. Honningsvåg has officially been a city since 1996, and the sun shines here all the time from late May until July. In winter, the sun doesn't rise at all from late November until January. That's just because of the way that the Earth rotates. When you're so far north, the sun just never really goes that far away. People do use light therapies in winter to try and help, and you can of course see the northern lights pretty much any time when it's dark. It must be really strange to see the northern lights at 2 p.m. on a random Tuesday. You can't see them in the summer of course because it is always light and it does have to be dark to see them. The city is the gateway to get to one of the most famous landmarks in Norway, North Cape, and that's where we decided to go on our excursion. We met in the theatre to pick up our excursion tickets and then we were called to our bus outside. It was a great big bus with a toilet that I always appreciate, and I don't know if it's just me, but I always find bus rides so relaxing that I do struggle to stay awake, especially if it's cold outside and the tour guide is telling me about the place. The scenery was really beautiful and it did seem strange looking at these big patches of ice because it didn't really feel cold at all. I probably should have bought a hat in hindsight, but that was about it. The jumper and the coat was fine. It is the furthest point north that can be accessed by road or by car. It didn't always used to be that way though, and people would climb up the cliffs just like this until the road was added in the 1950s. I am so glad that we didn't have to climb up any cliffs. Our coach dropped us off right at the visitor centre and we were able to take pictures with this landmark. The rest of the centre was cool too. There was a cinema room, a museum, and a space where the lights would show you North Cape going through the different seasons. They had plenty of trolls to buy in the gift shop too, of course. Being there really did feel as though we were on top of the entire world. I was feeling on top of the world, and I literally pretty much was. On the way back, our ship stopped off at a Sami experience. The Sami people have lived in this part of the world for thousands of years, and they were traditionally reindeer hunters. Some of them still are, like the guide that we met. We all gathered around in the tent, and he taught us how to sing some Sami songs. We were given a piece of reindeer and bread to try in this cool cup, and he talked a little bit about the clothes that are traditionally worn. I definitely would like to learn more after this quick visit, but he did teach us how to throw a lasso too. I'm not sure when that will come in handy, but you never know. We also learned how to throw axes when we took an excursion to visit a llama in Malay. I named my twig Twiggy Stardust, and the llamas, goats and deers seemed to like it. It did make me laugh when I saw these dogs and it looked as though they were driving the tractor. If there was a real excursion called Watch a Dog Drive a Tractor, I would be there like a shot. That sounds amazing. The llamas did prefer the bread and I can't blame them. I would always pick eating bread over leaves too. It was a very rainy day, but it really didn't matter. We'd already had a lot of luck already with the sunshine in the Norwegian ports that we'd visited, like Kristiansand and Ålesund. We always knew that the weather would get colder as we went further and further north. I was hoping for blue skies, of course, but as long as it wasn't raining and really foggy, I thought that it would be fine. I have heard about people travelling thousands of miles and not being able to see anything, but I was optimistic. I did want to see Iceland and Svalbard after coming all this way. In Kristiansand and Ålesund, we decided to do our own thing instead of taking an excursion, and we had a great day in both ports. In Ålesund, we climbed to the top of the mountain, and that is something that I could have only dreamed of when I visited a couple of years ago. The snow was up to my knees and I had spikes on my shoes. Seeing the difference here between the winter and the summer really drove it home to me just how much life here must vary during the year. I'm from the UK and we really don't have a whole lot of variety when it comes to weather, not compared to somewhere like this anyway. The view from the top was beautiful and it was so warm in Kristiansand that I dressed as though it was a summer's day. I was on the cruise with a mix of people from China, America, Germany, Canada, Australia and more, so it was so interesting to see which people thought that this weather was warm. For a bit of context, it was around 13 degrees Celsius, which is 55 degrees Fahrenheit, and for me that is lovely, sit by the pool kind of weather. These Norwegian ports were really lovely and very pretty, but it definitely wasn't the thing that I was most looking forward to on this cruise. That would be Svalbard and Iceland. I had heard a lot about Svalbard before I came on this trip. I knew that it was halfway between Norway and the North Pole, and I knew that because of the very remote location, no one is allowed to die or give birth on the island. Of course, you can't really control the dying bit, but if you are seriously ill, they will take you to the mainland so that you can die there instead. It can be hard to control the giving birth bit too, but generally as you get towards your due date, you would just move to the mainland. If a baby was born early though, they do have a hospital here. Svalbard is home to people of around 50 different nationalities, and in the first half of this year, it was recorded that there were only 8 babies under 1 that lived here. No cats are allowed on Svalbard at all, but there are a lot of dogs. I did hear one story about someone who bought a cat here and they just registered it as a fox. I'm not sure how true that one is though, but I don't think I could live somewhere that didn't have cats. Let me know if you can in the comments. Pulling into the port was so exciting. I had no idea what to expect or what to wear, but as I had a tour booked for the afternoon, I decided to venture out alone in the morning. Not past the polar bear warning signs, of course, just into town. We were docked until late at night, so although we were only there for one day, we had quite a lot of time to explore. I was wrapped up warm and you can see my scarf flapping around here, but honestly, it was not too cold. The weather can get up to around 5 degrees Celsius, which is 41 degrees Fahrenheit in summer, and it drops down to around -5, which is 23 Fahrenheit in winter. The thing about the winter though is that the sun sets in October and it doesn't rise again at all for 4 months. It is completely pitch black the entire time. We went past a museum and I found what is called the Huskies Cafe. I had heard that the cookies in here were great, and that was so true. These are some of the best cookies that I've had in years. We had to take off our shoes before going into the cafe, and the room itself was so cute. They have huskies in here, if you hadn't guessed from the name, and they were all so well behaved. They were kind of just wandering around and making sure that everything was in order in their cafe. I left the cozy cafe next to go from one extreme to the other. I swapped my hat for a helmet and I went deep underground. The town that this cafe is in is called Longyearbyen. The Bien part means town, and Longyear was named after John Longyear, who founded the Arctic Coal Company in 1906. Most of the people who lived here then did so because they were working in the mines. I got to experience a little bit of what that would have been like during my tour. The mine that we were going down was Mine 3, which opened in the 70s and shut down in 1996. Everything has pretty much remained untouched since then, and they are currently using Mine 7. By the time this video comes out though, and when you're watching this, Mine 7 has also shut down. We were first taken into a little room which was used as one of the dining rooms for the workers. Our guide was fantastic and he explained to us how coal mining worked. I have to admit, this is not something that I knew a lot about before this visit. I thought that I had a very basic kind of understanding, but I was wrong, and it was so interesting. He told us about the different jobs and how they would strategically collapse the mountain back down after they had finished digging out a section. I knew that it was a dangerous job, but watching these videos just really brought it home. We were asked if we wanted to try crawling around the mine ourselves, and I thought, why not? I've come all this way, and I'm pretty sure that my friends who are watching this on YouTube will want to see me crawl through a 60 centimeter tunnel. Why not? Luckily for me, I'm not really claustrophobic, but it was more the temperature and the dirt that was the issue. It was freezing and everything was so cold to the touch, it stung your hands. We saw the little trains that were used to transport the coal, and we were able to test out lifting some of the machinery. I could barely lift some of it up, let alone working with it for 8 hours at a time. I am definitely not looking for a career change after this. In total, we walked about 800 meters down this long path, stopping to look at the different interesting things on the way, including this creepy, moldy Santa. We saw the original seed bank where they used to store different types of seeds, and they did this basically so that we would have a backup of every type of seed that we use for things like food on the entire Earth. That is so clever. It sounds like something out of science fiction, honestly, but it is real. They have a new seed bank that opened in 2008, and in there they have 660 million seeds. They also have an information bank down here in the coal mine where you can pay companies to store data for you. If you have a message that is very important to the world, you can pay them, they'll put it in here, and someone can read it in thousands of years. In theory, it's all stored on this special film. I'm not sure what I would put down here, honestly, maybe some sort of message to the entire world, something that is very important. Something like, yes, ketchup does go on pizza, Elf is the best Christmas movie, that kind of thing. It's not cheap, as you can imagine, and you do have to pay monthly for, I'm guessing, forever. Towards the bottom of the mine, we were given a chance to try crawling through an area that was 60 centimeters deep. That's just under 2 foot. The miners would climb and work in hundreds of meters of tunnels of this length. I banged my head a couple of times just climbing about 10 meters, and the ground was so cold. It was colder down here than it was outside, but at least I had these overalls as an extra layer. We were able to keep a piece of coal too, which I thought was so fun. I brought it all the way home. Normally when you go to visit a place, they'll say don't touch things, definitely don't take anything, but here they said, you know, we have enough coal, you can take some coal if you want, and I did. We all had the lights on our helmets while we were down there, but it did take some time to get used to the bright sunlight again when we came back outside. If you did live and work here in summer, it might actually be quite nice to go down into the darkness of the mine, because it won't be getting dark outside at any point. The strange thing about Svalbard is that there are no trees. That isn't the only strange thing, of course, but it is a strange thing. There are lots and lots of polar bears, but there are no trees. There certainly are lots of trees in Iceland though, and that was the next stop on our cruise. This was a first for me, and seeing things like cats again was really nice. Imagine if you were born and raised on Svalbard and then you went somewhere else and you saw a cat for the first time. Of course, not literally born on Svalbard because you can't be born there, but you know what I mean. I did find an Icelandic version of my cat Hudson, and I think they must be distant cousins. The scenery is breathtaking in Iceland, and it all felt so clean and welcoming for everyone. Iceland is the safest country in the world according to the World Peace Index, and it has had that title for 15 years. The country is often voted as one of the happiest in the world, and I can see why. The locals were so friendly but not pushy, and I really appreciate that. We visited Akureyri and Isafjura, which are two places that I cannot pronounce very well. You are listening to my 15th take of me trying to say those words, so at least know that I tried. I tried. We visited the botanical gardens and went to visit the town. It was all very pedestrian friendly, and even the traffic lights were in the shape of a love heart, which I thought was so cute. Do not ask me to tell you where we went in terms of the roads, because I have no idea how to even start. I also don't know if this is an Icelandic hairstyle or if it's just what the shop went with, so let me know if you know. Luckily for me, over 90% of people in Iceland do speak English, and when we went into any shop or any cafe, they would just speak to us in English as default. Probably because they did know that there was a cruise ship in port. In Iceland, we saw lots of these purple flowers called lupine. These flowers are everywhere, and some Icelanders love that and some not so much. They were bought here on purpose, but I get the feeling that they've really taken over. Personally, I love them. They bloom in June and July, so I do feel very lucky to have seen it. I also felt very lucky with the weather that we had. It was cloudy for sure, but even the clouds were really cool and they were so low. We don't get clouds like this where I'm from. We normally have ones that look more like Toy Story clouds. A random fun fact here is that Iceland does not have any McDonald's. They used to, but it shut down, and the last meal is still in a museum, so you can go and see a McDonald's, but you can't order one. Up until this point, I hadn't seen any whales. I'd seen lots of seagulls, and we actually had given some birds a lift across the ocean at some point. They were just right outside my cabin. The seas were beautifully calm for hours and hours, and my wish was granted when we spotted some whales when sailing out of a port. We were able to see at least 5 or 10 different whales, and they hung around for a good hour or so too. The captain on the ship did an announcement to say that the whales had been spotted, and it was so fun to watch everyone drop whatever they were doing to run outside to see the whales. I love seeing stuff like that, and I just think humans are so cute the way we all do things like that. And yes, I am also human. I do realise that that sentence makes it sound like I'm not. There were lots of different people on this cruise from different countries speaking different languages, but even if I couldn't understand what someone was actually saying in a different language, we could all understand that they were excited about whales, and we could understand where they were. For me, this is really what cruising is all about, and I will not forget it. Visiting by ship gave us the chance to see things like this and to see views like this and this and this. I would love to come back to spend more time in Iceland and Svalbard, Norway too, but visiting by cruise gave us a chance to have a real taster of each place. Now I know that I definitely don't want to be a coal miner in the Arctic, and that I couldn't live in a place where you're not allowed a cat. In total, our cruise spent 3 days in the Norwegian ports. We spent 1 day in Svalbard and 2 in Iceland. We also had 4 sea days, and they were the perfect way to relax and recharge between the very busy port days. Watch this video next and I'll show you everything that we got up to on the ship, from the food to the entertainment. This is just as important as the ports, I think, so see you there in a couple of seconds.